Hi, once again, this is the Australia group for World Englishes, fall 2015 class. So today we're talking about some of the linguistic variances that we see in Australian English, which is actually very interesting for us because all of us speak a Western American dialect. So there's a lot of key differences.
And we're basing these linguistic variances on a piece of interview of Hugh Jackman that was taken with an Australian interviewer, I believe, about the movie Australia, where he actually gets to use his accent. And so we believed that maybe his accent would be a little stronger in comparison to another interview we saw with an American, where it was definitely more cultivated and held back.
So some of the differences we saw was, one, Australian English is rotoclous, which is, so they don't really have R's pronounced except in certain environments. Usually if it comes before a vowel, which our variety doesn't really have. Like we say our R's everywhere they appear. Which
we really pronounce our R's.
Yes. A good example of this is the very first word that he mentions in this interview, which is the word harder. He says harder instead of harder, which is one example of this that we saw.
One example where he does use an R would be like for the word different, because the E comes after it, he pronunciates the R. So I can't do an Australian accent like you, but
Yeah.
So another key phonetic difference is the glottal stops that he replaces when the word ends with a T. It becomes a glottal stop.
He uses that a lot in the word it. You see it pretty frequently in his transcription. It.
Yeah. We also see it in the word but. He always says but instead of but.
So another key linguistic variant that was provided by the other group mate, Benjamin, was from the Journal of Pragmatics, Goddard 2012, and it pretty much discusses the difference between horizontal and vertical individualism, which was really interesting when we were able to apply it to the interview by Hugh Jackman, where he pretty much just...
Well, actually, first off, what is the difference between vertical and horizontal individualism?
According to Goddard 2012, horizontal would be more, well, I guess we can start with vertical. Vertical is more of an American point of view, where you pretty much talk from the self and pretty egocentric, whereas horizontal individualism is more so you're individual, but you still have like the same, there's no status. Yeah, it's the same playing field, and no distinction between status. So, so we definitely noticed that in the Hugh Jackman, interview.
In the very beginning, he talks about the director and not himself. And says lots of glowing praise about him.
Yeah, and we can kind of infer that the question was like, so how hard was it making this film, or how hard was it working together with this director? I mean, first off, Hugh Jackman says it was harder for him than it was for me. I mean, just right off the bat, he says, "Oh, it's not about me; it's about him."
Well, and then even when he's talking about the difficulties, it's the crew and the actors and the directors all experience the difficulties, not just the main characters or the head actors, if you will. It's everybody.
And he was also very careful to not make it sound like it was a bad experience, which I noticed even before reading the article. The first time I watched the video, I thought it was interesting that the very moment he says it was hard, but it had to be hard. He was very careful not to make it sound like it was a negative experience and not to make other people look bad or seem bad.
Right, because going along with that, at the end of the 30 seconds that we transcribed for this first part, he says Audrey was saying, it was hard, but you want it to be. He said, and then he goes on and says, like, if it was all easy, then probably nobody would have gone and watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it.
I think that's
Well,
things like
I think those are the main points that we kind of found as far as linguistic variation, with trying to incorporate some input from Ben, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us today, but we definitely found a lot of key differences that I think that are worthy of mentioning about this, and actually does support evidences such as what was found with Goddard 2012, and also the Cox et al. Paper from the Journal of the International Phonetic Association.
Mm-hmm.